Drakengard 2 is regarded as the black sheep of the NieR franchise, a label stemming from the sheer amount of hate and dislike people have for this sequel. The game is considered a downgrade in every way to the original, with there also being big issues regarding its canonicity to the series, something that fans care deeply about. But to add a cherry on top, Yoko Taro, the eccentric mind behind the series, wasn't even directly involved with the project, with his only credited involvement being that he edited a few scenes. What happened? How did Drakengard 1, a game that soared despite its own issues and dark topics, find itself reduced in a sequel that nobody talks about, with many even calling it the worst game of the franchise? That's what I'm here to answer today, by taking a deep dive into every aspect of Drakengard 2, the story, the lore, the gameplay, everything it has to offer, and getting a proper look at what many consider a terrible game. This is Drakengard 2, the NieR series' black sheep, and well, I don't want to spoil you, but it was a pretty insane game to dive into. I hope you enjoy. Drakengard 2, or Dragon Dragoon 2, started as most sequels do. The first game did well enough to warrant a sequel, but the people behind the sequel didn't quite understand what was so well liked about the first game. And so they decided, well, change. They'll do some changing, change some things around. That'll make people like it, cause, you know, change is good. Right? Right? Oh no. Newly appointed game director Akira Yasui's key choice in doing this was effectively choosing to make Drakengard 2 an opposite of the first game, meaning the dark, disparaging world Drakengard 1 flourished in would be transformed into a fun, bright world to cater to a similar story to Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy, the exact series Drakengard originally wanted to stand out against. It's important to note though that before he completely ducked out of the project and left, Yoko Taro had a pretty cool idea. Yoko Taro had the bright idea of making Drakengard 2 a space adventure with dragons in outer space, you know, astronaut, all that stuff. And I think that would have been really cool, but sadly we never got that, as he would quickly leave the project. He was originally, you know, gonna work on it, but he did change his mind and left, later saying that he just didn't want to be a director at the time. He was very tired of the role. This sounds a bit weird, but it's very understandable when you understand what he went through with the first game. After what Square Enix forced him to go through, all the changes, all the just trouble they gave him, I, even just reading it, can completely understand why he didn't want to come back and do it again. This also shines a light on why before mentioned director Akira Yasui chose to change the game so much, his cave to Square Enix's wishes being most apparent in his choosing of themes. While the first Drakengard was dark and focused on immoral themes, this one would take a path focusing on love and hate, showcasing both ideas through the game's groups rather than a bloody war. Though, the biggest new idea would emerge in the form of a father-son relationship, showcasing Drakengard 2's storytelling to be a more personal approach rather than Yoko Taro's philosophical approach. Besides this, the rest of the game was meant to be a sort of upgrade to the original, resulting in, well, we'll say, interesting set of choices, as well as some things that would actually end up being trademarks of the NieR universe. But I guess instead of just explaining all that to you, I better show you it. That would probably help a lot more. This is Drakengard 2, as I said earlier, the worst, terrible game of the franchise. And well, it's pretty crazy.
Before I was born, a war broke out between the Empire and the Union. Many people bled, and the world marched towards destruction. Lost lives, sacrifices, the all-consuming blaze. The world saved. Caim, the soldier who lost his voice. Angelus, the red dragon. They were the events of 18 years ago.
Not nearly as cool of an opening as the first game, but still, 18 long years have passed since Drakengard 1. 18 long years since ending A, the one of 5 endings this game continues off of. As a quick refresher, ending A was Drakengard's good ending, where Caim and his pact partner dragon Angelus were able to stop the world from ending due to Angelus sacrificing herself as the seal. Due to her efforts, we now have the sequel, where we begin by being introduced to NieR, a young man belonging to the Knights of the Seal, an organization established to protect the goddess and the seal. We're also introduced to his childhood friend Eris, who urges NieR along as he completes a training assessment for the Knights. But during this assessment, it becomes quite clear nobody really likes NieR as much as Eris. I mean, a soldier personally calls NieR out, as not only did the previous general of the Knights pick this quote-unquote dragon child out personally, but even the leader of the Knights, the highest rank, the hierarch, calls NieR a savior. Though, these insults seem to be a norm for NieR, him quickly winning the battle and running off to the end of the test, landing him right in front of General Gizmor. Strangely, the general offers to test NieR himself, with his wording and demeanor coming off as almost, I would say, hateful. I wouldn't expect someone who's supposed to lead the Knights, a big organization like this, acting this weird and mean. I mean, maybe it's coming from a tough love motivational place, but I'm not really getting that vibe. NieR successfully passes the test, proving his strength in front of the now present hierarch Sere. Cool to see him return. He congratulates NieR, saying he reminds him of the previous general, Auror, NieR's adoptive father, before recalling the fatal event from 3 years ago where Auror sacrificed himself to protect the Knights. Sere then yet again reminds NieR of his label, the Savior, something that actually bothers him this time, as Auror didn't raise NieR as a savior, rather he raised him because he's human. Sere responds that regardless of what he thinks, it is NieR's duty to prove that Auror didn't die in vain. Kinda cruel. Gizmor then receives a message that something called a district is under attack, with NieR instantly being deployed to scout ahead. And I guess with that, it's finally time to see why NieR is known as the Dragon Child. This is Legna, NieR's dragon parent, friend, pet. I honestly don't know, I haven't decided on a label for it yet, but yeah, this is Legna. I really wanted to note Legna as it's cool we have another dragon-human duo. I mean, it's Drakengard, that's what the whole series is about, but they aren't pact affiliated like Caim and Angelus. Legna pretty much raised NieR until the Knights found him, and even after the Knights found him and took him, Legna followed him and has since been helping him. He's basically like a parent to him. I think I just answered my question from earlier. Legna is, yeah, I did. Legna is NieR's parent, pretty much. This is also pretty cool because this is a type of relationship Drakengard 1 described as pretty much impossible. There are so many remarks in that game about dragons hating humans, dragons don't bond with humans, with Angelus waiting until the very end of the game to tell the player her name. So having a relationship right off the bat that is the complete opposite of everything we heard is really cool, and it really drives home how close these two really are. With that out of the way though, I want to talk about Legna's voice. We have this clip here that is very sweet, I absolutely love it, but I have to show y'all Legna's voice. Like, I'm not even joking when I tell you I actually had a nightmare because it is just uncomfortable.
How many times is this now? How many times have I carried you on my back?
Too many to count, Legna. I grew up riding you like this. Your wings have always protected me.
Yes, it has become my duty in life to protect you. Nothing will stop you as long as we are together. You are special, Noe. You must be strong and brave.
And just like Drakengard 1, when we get the dragon, the combat really begins. Kinda. This time around, there really is a lot different when it comes to the ground combat. But at least the good old sky combat, you know, the thing we're really here for. What did I say? Literally ace combat, but dragons, yeah? It's just everything that was loved in the first game, but just a little bit better. You got your dodge buttons, your lock on and free fire shots, and your magic, all serving the same purpose as before, though this time it all feels a bit better with some added speed, and the enemies can drop random types of magic that are definitely a fun addition. Overall, I still think it's so fun to just rain down fire upon enemies as a big scary dragon. I mean, how can you hate being able to do that in a video game? In the first game, I really did hate how easy it was to get shot down. I mean, how are you gonna name the game Drakengard, but constantly push me off the Draken part of the Drakengard? I hated it a lot. But now, in Drakengard 2, that problem pretty much doesn't exist. You can't directly get kicked off Legna. I mean, you can die on Legna, and you can choose to get on and off Legna, but there's nothing that'll literally take you off Legna other than like a cutscene. Which is an improvement that is so nice because I love spending my time fighting on the dragon. After tearing through the skies with Legna, Noe is dropped off to protect this district from monsters, giving us our first real hands-on moment with the ground combat. Basically everything from before has returned, still being very Dynasty Warriors-esque, but well, the improvement. There is a lot of great changes in this game. Every piece of gameplay basically saw some form of an upgrade, from magic now feeling super strong, as it should, to a way less clunky defense system with an added parry, to something that for some reason really bothered me in the first game. The enemies were AFK on a battlefield during a war, but here, not in a war and somewhat contained, they seem to be more alive than ever. They're actual enemies now. Though, we can't speak on all of this, all the improvements, all the other gameplay stuff, without talking about what seems to be this game's shiny grand addition. You can switch characters now. Yeah, kinda crazy. You can switch from Noe to 3 other characters, with our best example, our only example right now, being Eris, who offers her own unique strength in the way she gives a bit of bonus damage against undead enemies, with the other 2 party members who eventually join us also having their own strengths. Yet another pretty cool interesting change. But there's always a but. While these changes do end up making the game feel better, the overall loop still isn't all that fulfilling. While it did honestly take me longer to get tired of it, I came to the conclusion that these are improvements, they're upgrades, but they're not really anything different. And by the time I finished the game, I was more than tired of it all. Which sucks because, spoiler alert, I have to play through the game 3 whole times to get all the endings. So, yeah. Still, I'm in it for the story, and there's many more mysteries to uncover as Noe and Eris finally close in on this district we've been hearing about. Noe then finally decides to ask Eris the question we've all been wondering. What even are these districts? Prompting Eris to explain that there's 5 of them, and that the Knights of the Seal consider protecting them their highest priority. Also reminding Noe for some reason that it was one of these districts his father figure Auror died protecting. They seriously will not give this kid a break, bro. They keep mentioning his dad dying. Anyways, upon reaching the steel bars that close the district off from the rest of the world, a man appears, a dirty, sick, and dying old man, begging the both of them for help. But then Eris shouts, demanding Noe to ignore him, as apparently he's a former soldier of the Empire, a man whose crimes could have destroyed the world. Noe then asks why he was never told there were people here, a very real concern to have. And Eris simply explains that the people in the districts are basically sacrifices. She explains the districts also house a key that locks away fatal, poisonous air. and that the only way to keep this key working is through life force. Hence the what she calls martyrs. This explanation and term really upsets NieR, as he had instantly noticed how fearful and weak that man was. To him, he wasn't a noble soldier sacrificing himself for the greater good. He was a sick man who had no choice in the matter. Though, Eris quickly shuts NieR up, threatening him and ordering him to leave the district. I do really like how NieR instantly realized how potentially strange and wrong everything going on here was. His willingness to stay on the right path being very refreshing compared to everything we got in Drakengard 1. I mean, Caim literally wanted to save the world, but Caim was not a good character, and he also couldn't speak, so having a character who speaks up and speaks out against the injustices he's seeing is very refreshing. I couldn't have done 2 mute protagonists in a row, but I also like that NieR is like a good guy. It's kind of refreshing, because Caim just killed a bunch of people. Though I also gotta note these districts. I mean, if the Knights of the Seal are the ones protecting them, and it's very important to them, I think we gotta assume that if these districts are all broken, they probably end the world, just like the seals from the first game. I have honestly no idea or no theories about the sacrifices though. I don't know why they need those, so don't ask me. NieR and Eris return to headquarters, where they are quickly yet again shipped out to another district. This time, it's the district of Soulflame, protected by Lieutenant Zangpo, who I can't figure out if that's his hair or it's his helmet. Anyways, we take to the skies as Eris and Zangpo travel by foot, with Legna really hating how NieR just listens to everything Eris says and follows her around blindly. But eventually, after clearing another set of sky missions with Legna, we reunite with Eris and reach the district. Like before, NieR decides to ask Eris a question. If this district has a distinct guardian, why doesn't the first one, the District of Shining Light, have its own guardian? Her responding that she doesn't exactly know very much, but that the guardian had mysteriously disappeared. And I know that that means we'll definitely meet this guardian before this game is over. But soon we're reunited with Zangpo at the district gates. Him urging former soldiers of the Empire to head into this mysterious fog that has appeared, justifying it by saying they should be eager to atone for their sins. But before NieR gets the chance to really lash out, who has appeared?
Lady Mana. It's Lady Mana.
It's her. Lady Mana. Really her. It's Lady Mana.
Wait, Mana? Whoa, okay. I understand Sere, but seeing Mana after the ending of the first game is really crazy. Mana mysteriously pops up, offering to head inside instead of, as Zangpo puts them, the martyrs. Hours then pass while they wait for Mana to clear the fog, but eventually the ground begins to rumble, the group realizing she's probably up to no good. A scary realization if these districts are in fact seals, something Mana has ruined in the past. NieR and Eris rush in with NieR asking yet another question. He just can't stop with them. This time asking if Zangpo will be alright, saying he doesn't look very tough for a lieutenant. But Eris assures him that he's the opposite, giving us a rundown of who Zangpo really is. Originally, Zangpo was a lazy, gluttonous knight, but upon entering a pact with Ifrit, he sacrificed his ability to eat to become strong, a story that will become a running theme as in Eris's words, in the Knights of the Seal, strength is all that matters. As the two of them head into the district's cavern, it becomes clear Mana does truly intend to disturb the key in some way, by activating traps and confronting Zangpo in the central chamber. Zangpo calls her mad, as if she breaks the key, the poisonous air will cover the entire world, effectively killing everyone. Mana ignores this, saying this key causes nothing but pain to the people and only makes the knights stronger. Something that really starts to seem true as Eris orders Noe to kill the sacrifices, them no longer useful as they intend to rebel. As we're forced to kill these rebels, Mana strikes down Zangpo, destroying the key in the process.
The flame, it has been extinguished. Now, at last, we are free.
Eris quickly explains that once a district's key is broken, the associated lieutenant dies, a sign that the knights have lost control of said district. But while Eris and Noe lock up the now exhausted Mana, let's talk about a few things. One thing that I think is very obvious about this scene is that it almost feels cut down, like there was meant to be more here, but there just isn't. I imagine at least a boss fight or an extended scene maybe. You see, Zangpo's pact partner Ifrit was designed all the way in Drakengard 1, and well, they decided to bring him back here as Zangpo's pact partner, meaning they probably really wanted to use this creature. But we never see it. He's said to be his partner, he appears in official art with Zangpo, yet he never appears once in game. Is that not weird to y'all? This gets even weirder when, as you'll see later, every pact piece and pact partner have a boss fight, except Zangpo. I mean, it makes partial sense because Zangpo is our ally. I don't imagine us to have a boss fight against him, but come on, you could have showed us Ifrit. I mean, we've been building up to this. Everything we've done the last hour or so has been for this moment. And we're just shoved outside of the room and only given maybe 10 seconds of them fighting. And when we do finally get back in there, he's just dead. And that's it. You can't tell me there wasn't something that was meant to be here. And while the answer to that part isn't really known, we do know of a few things, like Vertile is in the game files, as well as some of the other characters' weapons. It makes me think that maybe they were planned for some point. But while Zangpo's scene for sure seems like something that was definitely cut from the game, I think these characters not appearing is more than likely due to the game just trying to cut out some of the dark topics, which is just something the sequel is really trying to do. Something I'm not too sure I love, but something I can't really say makes the game worse. It's just too early to say. The dark aspects haven't completely dissolved, but well, they have definitely been toned down. So I guess we just gotta continue on and see if that really changes for the better or for the worse. With Mana now in jail awaiting her fate, Noe struggles to justify her capture. As to him, her actions were all for the well-being of the people. He even goes as far as to sneak in her cell to personally ask her saying that it was all the knight's fault the people suffer, these 5 keys being devices they use to hold power, something he's already seen with his own 2 eyes. But before he can think about her words any deeper, he's caught by Eris, who delivers the news Mana will be executed very soon. The next morning, General Gizmo arrives to formally charge and sentence Mana to execution, and in either a stroke of luck, or perhaps divine intervention, as Mana begins to burn, the ground erupts, extinguishing the flames and covering the area in a deep fog, allowing her to escape. Noe is instantly ordered to the skies where he quickly shoots down Mana's ship, but she's clever, somehow finding a way to remain hidden even after the crash. Noe presses on now on foot, and after pushing his way through Mana's magic traps, he happens upon his first boss fight. A weird pig, boar, maybe anteater thing. Anyways, this is why I was really pressing for a boss fight earlier. This thing is a terrible choice. It's a strange choice. I absolutely hate it, and I hate that I had to say this is our first boss. Still, while being pretty janky, the boss falls pretty quickly when I learned I could just spam this slam attack. And with the creature's defeat, Noe is finally able to reach Mana's hideout, cornering her. Though, just like before, Mana is steps ahead, effortlessly escaping yet again. Seemingly angry at this result, General Gizmo orders the knights to withdraw. This act showing us a scene of him saying that Noe and his dragon are too strong, just like Or. and that he's ready to put a plan into action? I knew there was something wrong with this guy. Upon returning, Noe is summoned by Gizmor, him casually proposing him a drink that he points out or loved. He then calls Noe stubborn, though just like the drink, it's something he has in common with his adoptive father. But then Gizmor stops, saying it really bothers him to have someone so powerful in his midst. Noe, beginning to feel sick, is surprised, but before he can speak, he's silenced. Gizmor telling Noe how Or did the same thing he just did before heading out that fateful day. Noe then falls, sickened and blinded by the poison now in full effect, causing Gizmor to mock him, saying Or could at least deal with it before succumbing to the one-eyed man. As Gizmor continues on, Noe's anger continues to build, and though now slowly dying, Noe summons a new kind of strength. Eris, hearing the noise, rushes in, speechless at what Noe has done. Though, knowing nothing he says can fix this, Noe flees and quickly calls for Legna. As he emotionally explains what happened to the dragon, Legna is understanding and of course willing to help, calling this situation a typical human story. The two of them then quickly fly to a safe place, the valley Noe grew up in. But meanwhile, as we fly, we're shown a very short scene of a silent man in the dark. Could it be? Oh my god. It is them. It's Caim and Angelus. And why did he smile like that? I would try and do the smile, but I really don't want that on the internet, so just imagine it. Let's get back to the video, man. But back to our duo, where Legna has seemingly evolved. Something Noe instantly asks about. It's a big change. Legna's reasoning behind this is his blood memory. A dragon's blood allowing them to change as circumstances become more and more dire. Kinda weird. Though we're not really given time to think about Legna's heritage as soon we reach the valley and we're given the cutest conversation in the whole game.
It's been a long time. I remember playing here when I was young.
When you were young? When you were a small boy, these valleys were your entire universe.
Back then, Legna, you were all I had. If you hadn't been there to raise me, I would never have survived.
These valleys are my home. Anything in them are my responsibility, even abandoned human children.
I owe you my life. Back then, I thought that when I grew up, I would grow into a dragon too. I had no idea what humans were.
If the Knights of the Seal hadn't come to these valleys, who knows? You might very well be a dragon right now.
Maybe, Legna, maybe.
Together, they explore the valley looking for a place to rest. And as Legna drops Noe off to check around a bit more, Noe is ambushed by Eris and the Knights. Noe, knowing Legna can't hear him, fights and fights. But the Knights seem set on using all of their manpower to capture a single man, eventually cornering Noe. Yet as all hope seems lost, a door opens, with Mana on the other side. With no time for questions, Noe follows her. But they won't be allowed to escape that easily. With them being pursued by soldiers and the weather getting worse, Mana is struck off a cliff. And maybe because she seems to have otherworldly luck, Noe's calls for Legna reach him just at the right time, allowing both of them to be saved by the dragon. The scene ending with Eris angry and perhaps jealous, as in her words, that woman has taken Noe. This gives us access to a new playable character, as obviously we've lost the ability to play Eris, and Mana honestly might be the funnest party member so far. Even though that's not a word. enjoyable. She's enjoyable, you get it. Her ability is dealing bonus damage to magic enemies, but I found the most enjoyable part of her being her skills, as with every new weapon, she pretty much gets a new spell that comes along with it. But together, the two of them travel to the next district, the district of Hollowed Water. And once there, they witness even more atrocities. Similar to the first district, people are sick, starving, and dying. Yet if these people try and leave, it's death. Death by the knights. Hell if they stay, hell if they leave, as NieR puts it perfectly. This leads to the newfound duo battling through the district till they reach the key, where they are quickly confronted by its guardian, Hanch. She leads them outside, and after having a meltdown over her looks, okay, she reveals it was her who crafted the poison that would have its hand in killing Auror and hurting NieR, all before brandishing her pact beast and beginning our next boss fight. Hanch and her pact beast Kelpie's boss fight is a great showcase of how far Drakengard 2 has evolved from the first game, probably being the best boss fight we've got in the series. Well, maybe not like story-wise, but like mechanic-wise, yeah, it's pretty cool. This is the first boss fight that takes place on both the ground and in the air. You begin the boss fight on Legna fighting Kelpie, who springs up from the water. But every 1/4 of her health, mages on the ground will create a shield around her. So Legna will drop NieR off and you play as NieR to kill the mages, with you having to do this about 4 times before Hanch falls. But Hanch as a character is actually really cool. Not only did her designer create an absolutely unsettling yet interesting design, but there's a lot more the game doesn't tell you about her character. Remember those weird comments from earlier where she was talking about her looks and all that? Well, it turns out when she was younger, she drowned, and the only way she was able to live was with the pact with Kelpie, trading her charm for strength and the ability to live. This story sticks out to me for a couple of reasons. They went out of their way to give this relatively minor character a backstory, but it's a backstory that you never hear in game. You have to go out of your way to find it online or in data books, things like that. To me at least, this tells me that they wanted to be dark. They wanted to be dark with this game, similar to the first game, but they didn't. A lot of stuff was heavily toned down and the rest of it was kept outside the game, leading me to think that, yeah, this game definitely is trying to be a traditional fantasy. This label, I think, perfectly describing what Drakengard 2 basically is, a more traditional fantasy take on Drakengard 1, which does make sense considering Square Enix's history with tame RPGs, but it's just really weird considering it is a sequel to Drakengard 1. I don't know how to really feel about it. It leaves me in moments like these where I wish we heard these stories in game, something we would have definitely had in the first game. We've gotten rid of the darker aspects, but in return the story is far more structured, even if it is somewhat basic. It's just a toss-up. Was the sacrifice of dark topics worth a clearer story? I don't really know yet, and well, I honestly shouldn't have an answer yet. We have a whole section at the end of the video to talk about if this game is really that bad, so I guess I'll keep this in my mind till then. As Hanch dies, yet another key breaks, meaning it's time for our duo to move towards their next target, but not before Eris can appear yet again. Angry at NieR, she blames all of his actions on Mana, saying that the girl's controlling him. But NieR refutes this, saying as of now, he could never see himself being a knight again, all before leaving. They end up in a town asking about another deserter of the knights, someone who seems to be known as a masked man. They find a guy who knows, but for him to tell us, he wants us to find 2 mysterious weapons, leading to a very annoying level. But best of all, upon delivering the 2 weapons we just worked for and looked for, he just gives us them back and the information for nothing at all. I literally just wasted 30 minutes of my life. He points us to a village that is known for housing shadier figures. But speaking of shady figures, we've seen another scene of Angelus calling for Caim, but also asking if he can see her, leading me to think that these two actually might not be together like I had thought. Weird. Once in the shady village, we find ourselves in the crosshairs of bounty hunters, NieR and Mana becoming quite the targets with their recent actions, and that, in combination with the darkness covered alleyways, we quickly find ourselves cornered. Though, just like always, Mana has otherworldly luck, with the mysterious man dropping into our defense at the perfect time. With the goofy attitude, he taunts the bounty hunters, opting to show them his chest rather than fighting? Okay. He shows them a body so mangled, even the game opts to show it off screen, causing them to run off quickly. The masked man then turns around and reveals his face, excited to see NieR. And although it takes him a second, NieR also recognizes this man, revealing him to be Yurik, a man who once served under Auror. Yurik becomes our next party member and is indeed quite cool, if that wasn't already apparent. He uses an axe which he spins around with and quickly gains velocity, making him the best character at taking out large groups of enemies. His might proves useful as we're effortlessly able to battle our way out of the village, but not before we find ourselves in one more chance encounter. Caim finally appears, and they somehow made him even cooler than I thought they were going to be able to. This whole scene and his personality in this game is quite literally just a Berserk reference, and you know, that's not a bad thing. They can copy paste. If you copy paste Guts from Berserk to anything, he's loved, so I get it, and it's amazing, and I'm just a really big fan of it, and I could probably yap about it for like 10 minutes. So I'm just gonna give you the scene that this is based off of, like read a quote from it, because it's really cool. This is literally the scene. This Drakengard scene is from Berserk. That thing was too big to be called a sword. Too big, too thick, too heavy, and too rough. It was more like a large hunk of iron. Caim's appearance causes tons of panic and brings forth revelations. Mana is terrified, Caim's appearance shaking her to her core, though she has no idea why. But to us, we know exactly why. Yurik also recognizes Caim, calling him the One-Eyed Man. This label instantly causing NieR to realize this must be the man who killed Auror. But right now, they must flee. With Mana's condition, there is no time for any more fighting, so they take to the skies atop Legna to escape. A bit of time passes and they all finally get the chance to regroup, with Legna confessing he could somehow hear Caim's thoughts, his words being, "the District of Precious Light." And well, they were gonna smash the place up soon anyway, so they head forth with their next objective in mind. Just like before, but now with the mighty Yurik, we effortlessly run through the fortress and reach the key, this one guarded by Yaha. Yaha is probably the most annoying boss in the game. His pact was with the gnomes, an already annoying creature, trading his luster, as he puts it, for strength. You fight through waves and waves of gnomes, with Yaha occasionally popping up with a tree-like body, and as he reaches half HP, you just gotta fight his tree. This tree being yet another annoying phase. And he has a very annoying voice.
Come, children. It's time to play.
Not very fun. I think they try and set him up as a tragic figure, his longing for strength leading him to a pact where he loses his luster, something that's explained as if people can no longer feel attraction to him. He also gains the ability to control people through eye contact, as according to Yurik, eye contact will cause him to trick you with his lies. It sets up an idea that a man who prided himself on his beauty can no longer be looked at by others due to his thirst for power. Though, if you were starting to feel bad for him, honestly don't. He spent the whole battle sexually harassing Yurik in NieR. Just like, okay dude, why are you doing this? With Yaha fallen, they smash the key up and quickly head back to the shady village for some more information, with NieR's resolve notably stronger than ever. After clearing up some more bounty hunters and having some skirmishes with the knights, The group is told about a person who allegedly has information about the rest of the districts. Yet the knights are also pursuing this person, so they gotta be quick. They take to the skies and head to the closed lands, with NieR noticing Mana has begun to get quieter and quieter since their encounter with Caim. Once in the valley, NieR follows what he thinks is the informant. But well, like always, Eris has to show up, her having tricked the whole crew. This time, rather than trying to persuade NieR, she's set on capturing the group, sending what seems like the whole knight's military after NieR yet again. A long battle commences, though rather than a certain side winning, a new force joins the fray. Caim closes in, making quick work of forces all around, sending Mana into a breakdown where she finally reveals the man is Caim, something we knew but NieR had no idea of. This realization sends NieR into a spiral. The man is Caim? The man known as the hero who saved the world 18 years ago? How does Mana know and connect to Caim? Things he soon learns as Eris reveals the truth, revealing Mana's connection to the world-ending events of 18 years ago, sending him and Mana, who seem to have lost all these memories, into shock. Legna then snaps NieR back into place, helping him remember why he's here and telling him they need to escape, leading to Legna shooting Eris down and flying the group far away to safety. Eventually, after a little bit of recovery, NieR finally gets the opportunity to confront the shaken Mana, confront her over everything Eris had said, who quickly confesses the full truth to NieR.
That man, he made me promise. Caim said that I wasn't allowed to forget.
Caim, the one-eyed man. The one who saved the world 18 years ago. The one who later attacked the seal and killed my father, Auror.
He told me never forget. Never forget your crimes. Live on, open your eyes, and spend every waking moment reflecting on your sins.
So when you break the keys and save the people, are you just trying to atone for your past sins?
No, I believe in the path that I have chosen. I must follow it right to the very end. Thank you, NieR. Farewell.
With this, Mana leaves, NieR now left with nothing, feeling as if the one cause he had forsaken everything for has turned on him. For now, he decides to follow Yurik, who himself is chosen to head in the direction of the next district. Though, little time passes as NieR is quickly wrapped back into Mana's efforts, with them finding out Caim has somehow captured Mana and left her to the Knights. And after a failed, frantic rescue effort, Yurik calls NieR a good boy, don't know why he did that and needed to say it that way, when NieR decides that he's still willing to follow Mana and help to save her. Mana's held in the place where it all began, the Knights of the Seal headquarters. And after battling our way to the top, NieR finds himself face to face with General Gizmor, a scene that mirrors their very first encounter. This time though, things have changed. NieR isn't naive like before, facing General Gizmor directly and quickly striking him down. But before he can finish the job, Gizmor reveals Mana's time is limited, leaving NieR with no choice but to rush out of the room and to the fortress's dungeon. With little to no time left, they just barely make it, saving Mana and allowing her and NieR to make up. Mana begins to apologize, but NieR doesn't let her. He understands that she wishes to save lives and everything they've done up to now has been for that cause, leaving Yurik to whisk them away towards the District of Shining Light. After all, this one should be easy, it has no guardian. Yet again, they effortlessly smash through another district, opening the doors to the key expecting to find nothing in their way, but instead they find Caim waiting for them. Then, all of a sudden, Yurik speaks up. Yurik is the one Caim is after, and Yurik was also this place's missing guardian all along, as well as finally telling us the truth of the events of 3 years ago. He confesses that when Caim attacked 3 years ago, he lost, but before Caim could finish him off, Auror had saved him, and instead of returning the favor, fighting with him, Yurik ran, making a pact with the Reaper in an effort to survive, granting him a lifetime of pain-filled immortality. Guess it's not a lifetime if he can't really die. But this is where you expect Noe to react in anger. After all, when it comes to anything about Auror, it's been nothing but lies, anger, deceit. Yet he actually seems concerned, realizing if they destroy this key, Yurik will go along with it. But that's what he wants. Yurik asks Noe that in the second the Reaper comes back to resurrect him, to finish him off for good. Although filled with tons of mixed feelings, Noe decides he'll find a way to destroy the key and save Yurik. This launching us into the fight we've all been waiting for, and it's just as good as we expected it to be. This caim fight is incredible. Not only is it insanely difficult, as you would hope caim is, the savior of the world 18 years ago, but caim even has his OG moveset, mimicking all the stuff you could do with caim in the first game. It's a really cool choice, making it a really cool fight. Though, this fight makes a few things apparent. First is that caim is still most definitely in his pact. I mean, he can't talk, which is pretty important when it comes to that. And we have seen scenes of him talking to Angelus in what I assume is her head. This also brings up another question. Why aren't they together? What's going on there? I know she's still presumably the seal, but I get the impression that they're somehow separated, like caim can't find her or vice versa. I also can't help but wonder why caim has appeared here. I mean, why at the districts? What is he trying to do? If these are seals, why is he trying to mess with them? I keep these thoughts in mind as we finally finish our clash with caim. And as it seems we've ruled over the thought to be invincible hero, he quickly rises, readying himself for a surprise attack. In the end, caim finished the Reaper for Noe, but that means Yurik is now actually dying in Noe's arms. Yurik, viewing this act as finally atoning for his mistakes, before saying farewell to Noe as he passes away. This death fills Noe with determination, him instantly asking Mana to take him to the final district, ready to finish this once and for all. Issue is, nobody knows where it is. Except Legna, someone just gave him a message of its location, and he just refuses to elaborate who. Guess it's just not important. Legna is just a normal dragon. Anyways, Noe doesn't care, him ready to rampage the final district. Though, this time things aren't so easy, as they quickly run into Eris and Gizmor. Like many times before, Eris attempts to change Noe's mind, but Gizmor, fueled by hate and knowing Noe just won't listen, opts to fight him once again. They clash, with Noe quickly gaining the upper hand, sending Gizmor back and breaking his armor to reveal he too is a pact partner. Him trading his body for strength and snake arms. He quickly pulls Eris into the way of Noe's sword, forcing him to fatally stab her, before disappearing and calling Eris nothing more than a useful servant. With her in his arms, Eris seemingly passes away, with her final words being that she will no longer try and stop Noe, leaving the player, me, feeling like trash. Poor Eris. Like, I think even through a video like this, you can see like they did not care about her as a character at all. Her treatment through the whole game was horrible. Fueled by rage, NieR pursues Gizmor, the last district guardian, continuing to tear up his district as he rushes to the key. But not before finding Sere. This is an interesting scene as Sere makes it apparent he hasn't seen Mana since the end of the first game, though he claims he's done everything in his power to look for her. Weird. Mana seems unaffected by this reunion, quickly rushing NieR towards their goal, soon reaching the final key. Now face to face with Gizmor, the only thing in the way of their goal, Mana and NieR begin the boss fight. And I don't love this fight. It's definitely one of the weaker ones as it's a lot of waiting. The room is laid out kinda like a cross, with Gizmor moving between the ends slowly and just spamming magic. Every time you get a few hits in before he moves, and that just makes it very slow. It's not hard, it just takes a long time. I guess a terrible boss for a terrible person, as Gizmor finally falls, but not before speaking ill of Auror one more time. A very deserved death. With the final district key destroyed, the tower erupts, causing them to just barely make it out thanks to Legna. But meanwhile, at the very same time, a familiar creature is set free.
Never forgive. Never forgive.
Angelus being free means one thing and one thing only, something Sere quickly explains. While NieR and Mana believe they are setting the people free, in reality they were breaking the seals keeping Angelus, the final seal, sealed. Meaning Mana has unknowingly repeated her same exact crime as 18 years ago. This breaks Mana, but not NieR, as his everlasting determination tells him he can somehow fight Angelus, stop her, and save the world from ending, and so he quickly hops onto Legna, ready to save the world. But as we head toward the final act, I really need to speak on a big issue that has really been bothering me. To open this next section, I want you to remember that really epic scene from earlier. You know where NieR transformed into that weird blue thing, a cool transformation, and he cut Gizmor's arm clean off. You know, they animated it, falling to the ground, give it sound effects, everything. They went through effort to do that. So, why does Gizmor just have that arm for the rest of the game? What happened there? Yeah, this is just one example of the plot things that just go unexplained in this game. And while it's a picky example as it doesn't really affect anything, think about this one. Why do we learn nothing of what happened to Mana after Drakengard 1? You'd imagine she'd be on the CIA's most wanted list after trying to end the world, but I guess she just walked free and managed to disappear. Even Sere didn't know, and apparently he checked the whole world. Just a weird choice that even a small line of dialogue could have solved. Though, I think the biggest, most alarming plot hole is that poison fog. We continuously heard that once the district's key is broken, the area will be covered in poison fog. Hence the keys and the guardians protecting said keys. Why did we just never see this? We crushed 5 whole districts and were never given a reason why we don't see the fog or why they seemingly lied about it. It's just like it was forgotten. I think the honest truth is that it was probably something like, oh, it was to protect people from the truth. The poison was a lie to protect the truth that it's actually protecting a dragon, which is a lot more scary sounding, but like both are ending the world. But like, why not just have someone confess that to us? Gizmor or Sere are perfect candidates, both people who had to have known the fog wasn't real. Just give me one line of them telling me this, the player, that it was a lie rather than making me think about all this. Because now I'm probably wasting time when it's actually just a forgotten issue, like a lot of the other things that are forgotten. Anyways, this is probably useless. Let's just get back to the stuff, yeah. We begin to chase down Angelus, who has began covering the world in her flames. Her going crazy, seemingly looking for something. Could it be Caim? We engage in battle, but due to her strength and speed, she's able to quickly get away. Though, this fight causes Legna to evolve yet again, and he kinda looks familiar. We also hear some of Angelus's thoughts, her saying she meant to be the seal for someone that she's forgotten. This making her feel betrayed. Legna also begins to hear human thoughts, someone attempting to call Angelus. And now that confirms it, it has to be Caim. Though, there's no time to waste as we charge after Angelus, following her to a familiar fortress. And after cleaving through enemies, we find ourselves in the courtyard with Angelus and Caim, where unbeknownst to Noe, this is the place where they created their pact. Noe tells Caim to stand back, saying that he needs to stop Angelus before it's too late. But Caim's unwillingness to move makes him realize something. Caim was also attacking the districts to free this dragon, to break the seal. But still, for what purpose? Hearing this causes Angelus to rage, sending both of them back, but Caim jumps in to protect Noe. Very confusing. But this will have to wait as Angelus has flown off to complete her rampage, Noe and Legna needing to stop her. This begins the most Drakengard feeling boss fight yet, dragon versus dragon with the blaze of hellfire. It also strangely plays out like the Black Dragon battles from the first game, with Angelus being insanely fast, leaving you to rely on lock-on shots for most of the battle. Legna also begins to act a bit strange, not resembling his normal self at all. Rather, his whole demeanor has become far more aggressive since destroying the districts. Like he is urging Noe to act for him rather than letting Noe make his own choices. He also begins to continuously insist that Noe should kill Angelus. Noe is not convinced at all until Legna apparently hears Caim's voice, him saying death would be fitting for him and Angelus, causing Noe to agree and realize Caim has just been fighting to see his partner. The battle ends with Angelus remembering Caim and returning to the ground, back to the place where they made their pact, and the place where the two of them shall say goodbye, beginning the game's most beautiful scene.
Is it over, Caim?
Together, the heroes fall in the same place they met years ago, perhaps happier than ever. But as of now, Noe has bigger problems. With Angelus's end, the world has begun to break apart, as well as Mana, who has begun acting like her child self we've seen glimpses of in the first game. Like always, Noe is set on saving everyone and is sure he can save the world. So Legna proposes the obvious, a new goddess. Yet no such woman is known, leading to the two of them agreeing to visit Sere, as if anyone would know what to do, it's gotta be him. But once there, it's clear Seri has disappeared, as well as things have begun to fall apart. Strange monsters have begun to appear everywhere, distortions are appearing out of thin air, and mana is becoming increasingly unstable. Legna does choose to point this out, making a big deal out of it and trying to get Noe to just leave her. But Noe wants to save everyone, something he's said tens of times by now, and insists that they will make it, which makes Legna really angry, him continuing to act weirder and weirder. Legna then brings us to the Holy Dragon's ancient tomb, the dragon's castle which has uncovered itself in all the distortions the seal has brought. Noe is somewhat uncertain of this building, though out of trust for Legna, he chooses to follow, hoping that they'll find something that will help them save the world. This launches us into one of my favorite levels of the whole game, where you and Legna move through this tomb as you're essentially told the history of the Drakengard world. We learn that humanity is the creation of the dragons themselves being created by the gods. With Legna following this up with what seems to be the most important thing we'll find here, a prophecy or some type of device that seems to tell the future, I think. He explains it as the Book of Seeds, a device that Legna really believes in, saying it explains that dragonkind will wage a war against the gods with a device called the Bone Casket. Though this bone casket needs something to work, the presence of a new breed. Something Legna then reveals to be Noe. This level also confirms something that I've been thinking, that Legna is indeed the Black Dragon from Drakengard 1. Throughout the game, he's been evolving to look more and more like the Black Dragon. I did think it was a coincidence, but with the changing attitude and eagerness to kill Angelus, I was pretty sure it was the case. So for it to actually be true is really cool. I still am wondering how it connects to everything though. As they leave the tomb, they notice a night ship coming their way, and after defending it from some dragons, they expect to find Seri. But instead they find Eris? Eris survived with the help of Seri, with her saying she couldn't have died. She wants to mean something when she dies, but the reunion is quickly pushed out of the way by Mana. Mana up to now has basically been broken, her mind in ruins since the breaking of the seal. But now, all of a sudden, she seems possessed. Possessed by what I can only assume are the Watchers. Noe is then sucked up into Mana's mind, forced to fight the child version of her to rid her of the Watchers. During this battle, we see her reliving the events of the first game, and as Noe forces the Watchers out, he reassures her that she can come back, him basically saving her and ridding her of her weakness. Now, everyone armed with the truth of the world, Eris coming back to life, and them all saving Mana, the group fly towards the Promised Land, the place Eris assures them will be able to save the world. Once there, Legna quickly speaks up, proclaiming that Noe's time has come. The bone casket has awoken and is waiting for him. The others look on confused at this, but Legna continues. Humanity's fate means nothing to him. Noe was never a human, rather a new breed, and is now a product of the plan, laid out by the Book of Seeds. This sudden action that's been sprung on him puts Noe at a fork in the road. Does he trust in his humanity? What he's believed himself to be for as long as he could think? Or does he trust Legna, his father figure who's his only family, the one who's been there forever, the one who's been nothing but helpful to him? With a heavy heart, Noe makes his choice, apologizing to Legna before proclaiming himself as a human, effectively betraying Legna. This leaves Legna no choice but force, as he summons his brothers to bring ruin to everything. But Seri finally appears, arriving with an army of golems to back everyone up against the dragon-covered skies. He reveals that the dragons are following their blood history, destroying the world and trying to kill the gods in an effort to rule is just their fate, telling Noe that Legna may have never intended to help humanity at all, rather just use him. Legna then swoops in, dropping the group into a cavern, this cavern housing and revealing the bone casket, an object of destruction the gods have left, one that strangely looks just like a seed of resurrection. Legna intends to throw Noe inside to get back at the gods, creating a super soldier from something they left. But this makes Noe realize that he has to fight Legna. There really is no other choice. Realizing that no matter how impossible the task seems, he must win.
Noe.
I hated for so long being called a savior. Now it burns me to be called a regular human being. Isn't that ironic? I wish I could be a savior. I want to save you. Mana.
Both transformed into new powerful forms, the new breed and the will of holy dragons, Legna and Noe clash as they have a heartbreaking exchange.
Legna, you might be a holy dragon, but you're also my father, and I am your son.
I'll ask you one last time, Noe. Will you not come with me?
Legna. I wanted to stay with you, Legna. As long as you remained my father, I wanted to stay. But this is goodbye.
This launches us into the final fight, where you play as an extremely powered up Noe that is basically a dragon in a human body, making for an incredibly fun but tragic fight. A fight filled with a beautiful soundtrack, probably one of my favorites from the whole series, and a ton of sad lines, like "When I was little, your wings were my home." When Noe finally does beat Legna, it's probably even more tragic. Noe telling Legna that this was guaranteed to happen. Children always surpass their fathers, no matter their race, with him still finding it in himself to thank him for being his father, causing Legna to laugh and call him sentimental, just like his real father, before falling, never seen again. Noe then returns to the ground, signaling the beginning of a new future, beginning with Eris as the goddess. Something Noe now hates, knowing what a goddess goes through. In the end, this may be peace, but at a great cost. The world is still chained by the gods, forced to rely on seals and a goddess, and while they now have a guaranteed chance at the future, it's only so long before events repeat themselves and this happens all over again. Okay. Drakengard 1 also did this. The first ending was a good, great ending that lowered me into a false sense of security, so I wasn't ready for the next endings. But this time, I know their game. I'm not falling for it, and I know we're probably about to get a lot worse. Still, I'm not sure I really love this. I love the implication that Noe's parents are somehow NieR Inferii. I mean, implying that Legna took him after Drakengard 1 and dropped him in this big casket thing and he got Noe as a result. That's pretty cool. I like the idea of it. It's cool. And I think it does wrap up the points from that game pretty well, because what happened to them was something I think I said in that video that I wondered about. But the thing that really bothers me is Eris being the goddess. Is it just me, or is that like a perfect position for Mana? This whole game was about her trying to fix her sins from the first game, trying to be a better person by freeing the people. In the end, it turns out she committed her sin a second time, and well, what's a better way to atone for that than becoming the goddess, effectively just preventing those mistakes from happening again. But instead it was Eris, a character that seems like she was only inserted to be in this one moment, for her to be a goddess at the end of the game. I mean, she literally appears, does the same action 4 times chasing Noe, dies, comes back, whoop, she's the goddess now. I don't like that. Though, I guess because it's a Drakengard game, we have more endings to go through, which in this game there is 3, and this is one of 3, so there's 2 more chances for it to get better, and probably get more dark and worse, right? I hope. Just like in Drakengard, Ending B branches off at a certain point to give us an alternate timeline. Though, strangely enough, in Drakengard 2, you have to replay the whole game again to get Ending B, pushing forward the idea that this is indeed an alternate timeline, which is what these branch endings are. Strangely enough, this does mean Drakengard 2 was the first game to do this. Replaying the whole game to get a second ending is now a staple of the NieR franchise, which started here. This is the first time it was done. But there's also added scenes on every playthrough, which means Drakengard 2 also started this idea, which is crazy because it is quote unquote the worst game, yet it started something pretty big for the series. It was an idea clearly still in its infancy, with there only being 3 total new scenes that really only give context to things. They don't change anything or how you think about things. Our first added scene is Noe speaking to his soldier, him reminding Noe of how he came to the Knights, telling us Sere somehow knew a quote-unquote savior would appear one day, leading to Noe's discovery where Auror instantly took him in, no questions asked. Our second added scene is a scene with Sere, pretty much confirming that Vertile did teach him everything before dying, basically telling the player that it is the same old Sere from the first game after all. Added scene 3 is by far the best one, featuring a flashback scene of Noe and Eris where Noe promises he will always protect Eris as she's a woman. Noe's a good guy. But this pretty much gives us some essential context on why Eris was so hung up on Noe's betrayal, as not only was it basically a betrayal to the Knights, but it was a betrayal to her, him basically ignoring his promise to her for another woman. Those are all the scenes, and since those are all the scenes, we're now brought to the actual ending, Ending B, which branches out right at the end of the game as the group rally towards the Promised Land. Things do play out very similar, though this time Eris being the goddess is mentioned early, causing Noe to give in to Legna's push and follow him towards the bone casket in hopes of creating a situation where a goddess isn't needed. Together, Noe and Legna crack open the casket, but in a strange turn of events, the casket doesn't follow Noe, rather Mana, quickly absorbing her. Legna quickly draws the comparison to how Mana was controlled before, the gods intending to use her yet again. This launches a boss fight that is a really cool callback to Drakengard 1, acting in a very similar way to how the Mana boss fight in that game was. She's a bubble-like enemy that doesn't really move, rather spams these shield-type projectiles you have to continuously dodge as you do damage. And as you win, effectively killing Mana because you're not really given another choice, she speaks to Noe. She tells him to not give up, and that this moment is basically a culmination of everything for her. Her sins, her punishment, her destiny, it was all to lead to this moment. Her saying goodbye before her and the casket disappear. Mana was able to trick the gods into thinking they could use her in an effort to destroy their tool, the casket. But while this does save the day, everyone besides Mana is okay, the gods aren't going to just let them walk away. This act, the destroying of the casket, signals war.
The dragons never forgot their history. They've lived to honor it. Now, they are about to surpass the gods. With the new breed as their weapon.
If the world is truly to be free from the rule of the gods, I shall become a weapon.
Do you think that's what Mana would have wanted? I don't suppose we'll ever know now. All we have left is war, and the desolation it leaves in its wake.
Okay, this ending is actually way better than the first. Like, it's a gooder ending. Gooder is not a word, but this ending is brighter. Destroying the bone casket means they no longer need a seal, but at the cost of mana and now an impending war with the gods. So I guess it's maybe not better, but it's at least more hopeful. I do really like this ending though, and I think a big part of that is that mana was used better as I had really hoped for. Her sacrificing herself for basically a better future, which I think is a perfect way for a character who has done the things she's done to like provide for everybody else. Still, it didn't really follow that darker route I've been craving through this whole game. But there's still hope. We still have Ending C, Drakengard 2's final ending. So I forgot to hit record till I actually got to the final boss fight of this ending, so please bear with me when it comes to this footage. This game is 20 years old and people don't care about it, so the only footage online is 1,000 years old. Just bear with it. This ending pretty much plays out the same exact way as ending B, all the way up to cracking open the casket and it chasing mana. But rather than the casket choosing to absorb mana, she absorbs the casket, not allowing herself to be a plaything of the gods. Pretty cool. The next part though plays out just like ending A, with the same exact clash between Noe and Legna taking place, ending with Noe deciding to be human just like before. We then get the same scenes of a battle, Sari appearing, and Noe transforming to fight Legna. The fight plays out just like before too, but with Legna having a slightly bigger and harder moveset. Still, it's not really anything different. When Legna's brought down is where the differences start, but these differences are really just a cutscene. No new bosses, no new fighting, nothing like that. Basically, with the casket gone, a goddess is no longer needed, and with Legna beaten, the dragons are gone too, and everyone has survived and there's no war. It's basically an ending where you beat both the gods and the dragons, signing a real, true new beginning for humanity. And I guess that's it. I mean, it's good. Obviously, they've chosen to go a completely different route than Drakengard 1, and that this is like the happy ever after ending. It's great. It's everything fixed. Everyone's happy. Nobody died. Well, I guess Legna did, but like, it's not dark. That's missing. Besides that though, they beat the gods, they beat the dragons, there's no more seal, everyone's safe, and best of all, the world didn't end. There's nothing wrong with the great ending, there's nothing wrong with the happy ever after ending. And while I may have preferred a darker ending, it's okay. The biggest issue with this ending is that it basically changes nothing. This is the ending you have to beat the game not once, not twice, but 3 times to get. And it's basically ending A with 16 more lines of dialogue and a few new still image shots. Overall, this was just a bummer. I think while this obviously is the happy ever after ending, the first 2 endings did a bit more for the game. Ending A was a build up so that ending B worked better. Ending B was nice because it was a good conclusion to a character that needed a better conclusion. Ending C is just ending C, it's boring, they changed basically nothing and it felt like it reused parts from the first 2. Overall, I am extremely bummed out. That's all I'm going to say because I feel like if I complain more, it's just going to be unneeded, and the next section is all about that, so yeah. With every ending covered, we finally get to return to the labels I gave Drakengard 2 at the beginning of the video. Terrible, worst, black sheep. Are these labels truly worthy of describing Drakengard 2? Yes, they really do. This game, it's not great by any means. I think you just got the impression of that. But a question like that can't be answered so easily as there is a lot of layers here. First, in retrospect, obviously this is the worst game. It's the most out there and different when compared to everything else the series has done since this game. But if the series had continued in the direction of Drakengard 2, I'm sure we would say the same thing about 1. But obviously, that didn't happen. What had happened was rather than the next game being a Drakengard 2 follow-up, NieR and Drakengard 3 pretty much completely disregarded its existence, putting it in like a 3v1 situation, and well, it didn't win that one. Though, I don't think everything in this game is as terrible as people say. And to be completely fair, a majority of its issues, the non-story ones, are more than likely a stack of development-related issues. Drakengard 1 had a long, documented history of development issues, leading me to think that while not much is available, Drakengard 2 probably sadly went down that same route, the small bits we do know supporting that. The gameplay being a bit clunky, scenes seemingly being cut off or not existing, the graphics not being very good, not strong at points, all are things that seem affected, but are all things that are minuscule, things that don't really affect too much when it comes to how the game left me feeling. But the story, the overall story though, yeah, finally, the story is something that left me super mixed and understanding of why this game might have its rep. The plot Drakengard 2 follows isn't really horrible. While it is definitely generic, all over the place, and has a strange share of plot holes, none of these are too big of an issue, not enough to destroy the game for me. Rather, my big main issue is something I've constantly mentioned. While it is indeed put together better than the first game, Drakengard 2 is an insanely different sequel story-wise. If this game was on its own, isolated, I don't think I'd hate its story. The mysteries around the district and seal are interesting enough. The constant back and forth versus right and wrong in the groups is okay. And I really liked the father-son dynamic between Legna and Noe. I think it was actually perfectly explored. Though, because all this is in a sequel that did end up being an entry in a whole new series, you can't help but think about that and therefore consider it. This being the part that really did weigh it down for me. If Drakengard 1 was a 100% when it came to the dark tones, then 2 here is like a 20% at best. A huge change. But a change that is made even more apparent when it's a direct sequel that makes effort to continue and return pieces of that first game. They're effectively trying to reform the series into a traditional fantasy. And maybe that really would have worked if the series had gone on and stayed in this traditional route, or maybe even just toned itself down in the future. But spoiler alert, Drakengard 3 is probably the bloodiest game in the whole series, leaving Drakengard 2 in this kind of like, why do you exist moment. In the end, I think I finally get it when I see people telling others to just watch the Drakengard series online. I often see this type of comment a lot when researching these games. I've seen it for the first, I've seen it for this one, I'll probably see it for the rest. And well, I think the conclusion I've come to is that most people see these games as disconnected to the NieR series. Maybe that's not the full truth, as these games are very connected, but to many, that's how they view it. And Drakengard 2 being a game that is somehow more disconnected in what is a disconnected series to many, is probably going to give it a pretty terrible label. And it did. People don't like this game. I think I agree that this game is pretty disconnected. Disconnected from what made the first game so cool. Disconnected from the future of the series, what it would eventually become. And even disconnected from its very own ideas. And maybe saying it's a terrible game would be wrong. But Black Sheep, worst, not the greatest? Sadly, yeah. Drakengard 2 fits all those things and probably all the other labels I've given it. Without a doubt, Drakengard 2 just wasn't that great. And while you probably thought that was all, there's one more question I want to tackle with this game. This one probably being the most essential question to these line of NieR Drakengard videos as a whole. Is Drakengard 2 canon? Yes, Drakengard 2 is obviously canon. I don't understand why people will fight tooth and nail to say it isn't. A lot of people believe that because Yoko Taro, director of the first game, Drakengard 3, and every NieR game, didn't direct Drakengard 2, that it can't be considered part of the universe. This argument falls very flat when you take every game into consideration. A big part of Drakengard 1 was its branch endings, something every game would have from there on out. Being a main appeal of the series itself, you know when you finish your first ending, you have multiple to go through. It's never been disputed that all these branches don't technically happen. Matter of fact, it's encouraged. Multiple timelines is something the NieR games encourage by the branch endings. While NieR would branch out from ending E of Drakengard 1, Drakengard 2 would branch out from ending A. It's the same exact situation with the same conditions, yet for some reason people say this one doesn't count. Also just random, think about this. If Drakengard 2 isn't canon for some reason, why is the random Final Fantasy XIV NieR quest canon? Come on, let's just be serious. Drakengard 2 is canon. It hurts absolutely nothing for it to be canon, and even if it's never been revisited in any way or mentioned, it can still be a canon entry. It's just another branch that's never been referenced. Something I also see in relation to this question is, why doesn't Yoko Taro say anything about Drakengard 2? And like, why would he? The game is going to be 20 years old next year. Not only would there be no reason to go back now, but it would also be insanely disrespectful. I think a lot of people assume for some reason that Yoko Taro doesn't like this game or just hates the history around it. But the truth is, he worked with tons of the people who worked on this game for years. He respects them, and since has had nothing but good things to say about the people who did work on Drakengard 2. If he tweeted or did an interview tomorrow talking negatively about this game, it wouldn't help what had already happened with the game, rather just ruin his relationships. Relationships with some people who still work on the NieR franchise. Yet again, it would just be meaningless. Why would he do that? And that's pretty much it. While Drakengard 2 may be a big awkward blip of history in retrospect, even this awkward annoying blip counts for something. As in NieR, its exaggerated crazy spiderweb of timelines, everything means something. Yet again, the big question, our final question, is it canon? Yes, Drakengard 2 is canon. Even if it's the most awkward, yet again, small blip that connects to pretty much nothing, it's still technically part of this crazy world in its own dumb way. And honestly, if you don't agree with that by now, I don't know what to say. I'll just get out of here, send y'all over to the outro so we don't gotta argue over this. And that's Drakengard 2. Probably the only game in this whole series that I'm going to make that I will be this negative about. Because, well, this game wasn't great and Drakengard 3 is next, marking the beginning of the games I know I have played and I will enjoy. And spoiler alert, that game's really good, it's really fun and really silly, so it's definitely going to be a good video. I also do plan to cover things like the novels, spin-offs, novels is a spin-off, but things like that, you know, manga, because, you know, there's a Drakengard 1 manga I completely didn't know about till after I did the video. Yeah, that was weird. Speaking of Drakengard 1 though, if you haven't somehow seen that video, that would be very weird because this is Drakengard 2. It's up there or there somewhere. It's on top of me somewhere. Go watch that video. It's a great video. I put a lot of time into it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Now there's just a few extra notes I wanted to include at the end here. One is the microphone. Halfway through the video recording, I changed the settings up a bit and thought I made it sound better. So the first half of the video does not probably sound as good as the second half. And I didn't want to re-record the first half of the video, so I don't know what to say. Go follow the Twitter if you want to get these videos early. The membership is available. It's $5, I believe. It's somewhere around there. Yeah, you basically get videos early. Like this video will be up there 2 or 3 days early, and that is going to be the same thing going forward for every video. But other than that, I think I'm done rambling on and yapping on about video games that people seem to watch and like. And so I'm gonna go work on Drakengard 3 so I can yap some more. Goodbye.